and appreciate joining the webinar today. I'm the subject matter expert on credentialed access control for Clear2there. I actually am with Clear2there's partner, and we've been in the access control business for years and years and years. And when Clear2there came to us and talked to us about how they wanted to create a simpler proposition and enable regional telcos and their partners to be able to offer credentialed access control and video combined with premise automation, it's just really a revolutionary concept, and I think its time is really perfect as a business opportunity for you and also for Clear2there and for us. So let me talk a little bit about why this is the perfect time for this discussion and why it can benefit our business. There are some macro things going on in the world today that are driving demand in this segment and creating opportunity in this segment. First, driving demand in this segment is a few things. Unfortunately, there is a greater need for security in our worlds, and a lot of education environments and medical environments and commercial environments are feeling the need for security that they haven't in the past. And this is not the province of major metropolitan areas. The reality is that the demand for security is happening in rural America as fast as it's happening in the metropolitan areas. At the same time, security is being redefined. In the past, 5, 6 years ago, we all may have said, well, I'm putting in a network of cameras and I can monitor what's going on my premise, and therefore I have security. Or some environment said, I'm going to put in access control and I can control who goes where. And when I do that, I have security. But what the recent developments in America have shown us, and is what it's created in the security business, is a redefinition of security. If you have the ability to see who's where and not the ability to control who goes where, you're not secure. And if you have the ability to control who goes places, but you can't see what's happening with video verification, it's not security either. So you have all these environments out there that have installed one or the other that now need to install the other one, and they've got certain barriers to doing it. So let's take environments that have installed cameras. Well, over the last 10 years, IP-enabled cameras, or Internet Protocol cameras, these are cameras that operate solely with a low-voltage Cat5 cable that flows power and data to the camera and back. Those cameras have been out for about 10 years, and they just last year passed the 50% market share in North America. So over half the cameras sold in the United States are IP-enabled cameras. It took 10 years to get there. And now all these end users with IP-enabled camera networks are saying, I need to add access control. And the current access control providers say, great, let's run power to every door, let's cut into every door frame, let's put wiring through your building, and show me what closets you want to put the control panels in. And all these end users say, whoa, 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 wait a second. I've got all these cameras, and I can't have access control in the same model as my camera infrastructure. And so it's creating demand for a new type of access control. It's also changing the way that security is provided. In the past, security had this whole industry, this whole market of its own. And it was some locksmiths, and it was security guys, and they had some monitoring. And now, because video and access control are becoming server devices, they are becoming the province of the IT and the telecom guys. So the way in which security is being delivered is changing at the same time in which the demand is increasing and the types of products allow that new service to happen. And that's really what we're going to talk about today, that telecom providers have relationships with commercial customers who have a need for access control, and they are the technical resource in the area. So, I mean, the best example of this is in the major markets. We see advertisements by AT&T and Xfinity and Cox and all these people that are offering home automation. And these people that offer home automation, they come in and in an hour they have you up and running. And this is what Clear2there does for you. It gives you this turnkey way of getting into this new business. And Clear2there has now given you the ability to approach your commercial customers with video and credentialed access control, which is something that these other guys in the major metropolitan markets haven't even figured out yet. So there are a lot of bigger issues than your business or our business or Clear2there's business that are driving demand. And whenever we can provide a good solution that competes in a marketplace that is growing with bigger drivers, it's a recipe for us for success for all of us. So what is credentialed access control, and why does someone need credentialed access control? Basically, credentialed access control are those little key fobs that you put on your key ring or the little card in your wallet, and it communicates RFID to a reader controller. It enables environments to get rid of keys. That's basically it. It allows them to get rid of keys. It allows them to have different schedules, different groups. So the executive group may have access that's different than the graveyard shift group. When you're at a school and you want to open up one door and you want it to turn on all the lights and unlock doors just for a basketball game, in the evening it can do that. So environments that have a lot of people and turnover and key management becomes an issue for security, or environments that have a lot of doors and they don't allow everyone everywhere at a single time, or environments where they need video verifications or they need scheduling and groups and shift access and all this stuff. Credentialed access control allows you to do all that. The bottom bullet here talks about requirements to comply with federal and state controls. This is on there specifically because in the healthcare environment, the HIPAA and the Affordable Care Act have put requirements for medical facilities to control narcotics and pharmaceuticals. So this idea of chain of custody from the pharmacy all the way to dispensing to patients becomes a real issue. And this is one of the reasons why we've installed thousands of cabinets in hospital rooms throughout the country, from Mount Sinai Medical Center to Sisters of Mercy Hospital chain. There are some federal and state controls, and there's some talk going on out there about how schools may be required to have some sort of video verification or access control. It's not a requirement yet, but there is tremendous demand happening. So who are we talking about in your customer base that can benefit from credentialed access control? Well, obviously, schools. K through 12 schools can't spend money fast enough to protect our kids. And what they want is during school hours, they want to funnel all entrance and exit to the building out of the front door, unless it is a teacher and students. So they go out to resource, they can come in and out the outside doors, but at the front door they want video verification of who comes and goes. They also want the ability to lock down the environment extremely quickly and to lock down parts of the environment. So we've installed in a school district in Long Island, and we have 1,300 doors across 17 buildings in the district. It all runs from a single server at the admin building, and they can lock down the entire district in 3.5 seconds. And this demand, this idea for locking down and controlling access in schools is a huge driver in the business. And with this proposition where we limit the capital expense and we put into an operational expense through the Clear2there platform, you're giving an option to your school customers that they just can't get elsewhere. Medical centers we talked about, state and local government, adding video plus access to control to their buildings or to specific access throughout the site, the community. Obviously, office buildings and warehouses, car dealerships, when combined with the other things that that Clear2there can offer on its platform, and retail environments. So these customers are customers that you have excellent relationships with and ones that rely on you for technical advantage. How does the system work? Well, this is the Ubiquiti Clear2there platform that you're really familiar with. So this platform works in the premise automation or farm automation, but it also works the same way with a simple English rules-based engine for setting up credentialed access control. So if you say, you know, Rob Mossman is in group number 1, group number 1 has access 8 to 5 in all the common area doors, and when Rob goes in through these doors, we need to turn on these lights and we need to turn up this thermostat. All that can be set up and run through the Ubiquiti Clear2there platform that you already have installed and that you're already rolling out. When you move from a residential environment to a credentialed access control environment, all of that environment utilizes this all-in-one reader controller. So let me talk to you about a little bit about why it's different and why it works with this platform. And in order to understand that, first let's start on the left here, which is a traditional access control panel. This is actually an IP-enabled access control panel. And what this is this is the brains of the system. And this big panel that's about 3.5 feet by 2 feet sits in a closet somewhere on site. And when you walk to the door and you present your credential to this black reader, and we've all seen thousands of them out there, it reads the RFID signal and it sends a signal through this specialized wiring called Wiegand wiring back to the closet. And the closet says, oh, yep, grant Rob access. Then the control panel sends a signal back to the door to the electric strike, which is provided electricity locally, and the strike goes click. So at the door, I present my credential, I hear click, done. So it's worked that way for 30 years. If the power goes down, these little motorcycle batteries here provide backup power to the panel. So all that works fine. But what we did is we said, why do we have to have so much middleware? Why do we have to do so much physical work and increase cost and complexity and limits your flexibility and your scalability? I mean, this is an 8-door panel. If you have 7 doors, you still have to buy the 8-door panel. And then they IP enable the panel, not each individual door. So we took this 3.5 foot by 2 foot control panel and we shrunk it down to 1 inch by 5 inches. So we put that whole control panel in the reader itself. So that reader can hold 64,000 credentials, 5,000 events, and 32 different time schedules. And it makes decisions locally. So you can program the whole network of readers using your Clear2there Ubiquiti platform, and then push all those permissions out to the readers, all 1,300 of them, or however many you have. And then if your network goes down, the reader controller can make decisions locally and say, yep, I know what my last update of permissions were, and I can make that decision and store the records, and then when the network comes back up, resync. So this ability to make decisions locally, program centrally, is the first of the patented elements of this product. The second piece of this product is that cost and complexity of having electricity at the door for the electric strike. We just said, why do you have to do that? Run a Cat5 cable all the way to the reader controller right at the door, tether off that reader controller to power the electric strike. So no control panel and no need for other electricity at the door because the electric strike is powered by the power that we flow to the reader controller itself. And then the third element of the patent is the ability to control this system through a web interface. And so what you really end up with is you end up with a situation where you are leveraging the infrastructure that your customer already has on site, and you're able to offer them a turnkey solution on a hosted platform that can now have credentialed access control and video and all the premise automations at once. So on the right-hand side, you're essentially using the cloud to communicate one door at a time. On the left-hand side in the traditional access control environment, you might use the cloud to communicate with the sub-panels, but you still have to wire from every sub-panel to every door, and you still have to have this battery backup. So the Clear2there platform is much easier to install and operate, much more flexible and stable. I mean, when you eliminate the middleware, you're much more stable. It's significantly less expensive, 30 to 40% less expensive. And the best thing about this is that our partnership with Clear2there innovated the way in which you can deliver credentialed access control, but it's not new technology. We were issued a patent on this technology in August of 2010. We have over 25,000 sites installed. We do business with British Petroleum, with Hard Rock Casino, with, I mentioned, Sinai Medical Center earlier, with Old Miss University, and thousands of installs in school districts around the country, as large as 1,300 readers in one district, or as small as 5 or 6 readers in your local elementary school in rural Iowa. And so this technology being proven and being on its 5th generation of hardware, its 12th generation of the software, creates a very stable platform for rollout in combination with Ubiquiti and Clear2there. So let's look at the single door topology. How does this really work? Well, let's look at it from the door back. So at the door itself, and I say door, but the reality is it could be any access point, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We flow power to the reader controller via PoE. So in between the network and the reader controller is a managed PoE switch. When the power gets to the reader controller, we tether off the reader controller to the electric strike with what we call the pigtail. So we can provide up to 600 milliamps of power to the electric strike. That is about 97% of all the electric strikes on the market. Then we also connect to the door sensor, so we know if it's propped open or not. We connect to the request for exit. This is actually not an exit sign. This is probably a button that is at the receptionist's desk so that after the video verification, she can buzz somebody in. We can also connect to biometric readers. We can connect to long-range readers so that when a bus pulls up to a gate, the gate automatically opens. All those things can connect into the reader controller. So through the managed PoE switch to the network, it then uses the gateway that you install on site, and that gateway communicates to the Ubiquiti cloud, which then gives access to the users based on their permissions on any of their mobile devices. So this means that any changes in permissions, any lockdowns, all that stuff can be done from all the devices that can access and manage the Ubiquiti cloud. So now let's take this topology and let's expand it out and say, all right, well, we've got a school and they want to do 25 doors at this school. And we actually did a really nice, relatively large install at a school with one of the Clear2there partners in Mississippi already. And I know that Clear2there has a case study that we can forward on to you. So in this environment, you simply replicate it one door at a time. So you flow power to each of the access points through the managed switch. In most cases, the most robust power supply, backup power supply, is on the server network, and so that backup power supply that's already in place actually provides the backup power supply to the access control network if the power goes out. But if the calculations are that it's enough doors that we want more power, we just simply put a backup power supply on the switch, and then it all communicates through the Ubiquiti cloud back to the platform. So when we look at each one of these cases, and when you have a panel-less IP access control where all you have is that reader controller at the edge, all of a sudden you can start to control access to things that others can't. So you might have a door, as you see in the upper right-hand corner, but you might actually control cabinets in the laboratory. At Old Miss University, we have the biochemicals lab, and they control access to all of the cabinets that have the specific chemicals in them, and they decentralize the decision-making to the head of that biochemicals lab. Remote locations. So in environments like many of you compete, many organizations have facilities spread miles and miles apart. Well, whether you're 2 miles apart or you're 2,000 miles apart, because this is an IP-enabled network device, it doesn't matter. All of those items are geographically independent and can work on a single platform. So that lab at the top of the mountain, or that facility that's down in town, or the agricultural site that's 10 miles outside of town, all work the same. I talked about long-range readers and the ability to put it on vehicles and have the gates open automatically. Interestingly, when you have no panel, we've actually had customers install reader controllers on forklifts or underground mining equipment. Or my favorite is we're installed in ambulances in New York City, because that ambulance rolls up to a site, the paramedics hop out and help somebody, and somebody sneaks in the back of the ambulance and steals stuff out of the cabinets. And so they installed our reader controller and its ability to work locally on ambulances. And then when I'm with my partner, we can access all the cabinets in our shift, and when we pull up to a site at 10:52 and we access the oxygen at 10:54 and the medications at 10:57, all of that log is kept in the reader, and then when we drive the ambulance back into the garage, it uploads all those records and that history wirelessly, and then downloads any new permissions. And now Ryan and his partner, who have the next shift, are authorized to access the cabinets on that ambulance, and I can't access it anymore. But when you eliminate the panel completely, you change the uses and functionality of access control. So forklifts, if I'm OSHA certified for the small one and not the big one won't start. So you can use wireless networks combined with the reader controller in many different applications, or server racks. All these access points that bridges this Internet of Things, this connected group of IP addresses to the Ubiquity platform, to the physical security world. And that's where you see the real opportunity and the real power. So in about half of the situations where access control is installed in the market right now, there is some level of legacy system. So you might have a site who says, wow, I love what you're offering to me. I love that this IP structure for access control and video and premise automation all through the Ubiquity and Clear2there platform works great, but I have 10 doors over here that are on an old Honeywell system, and I would put another 20 doors in with your IP access control, but I don't want to have to rip out those 20 doors from Honeywell. What do I do? So in that environment, what we do is we've got a product called the IP Bridge. So all of those new doors would be here in green, and those new doors would get installed the reader controller. The existing doors would leverage the reader that's already at the door and the hard wiring that's already going to a closet, and all you do is pull out the control panel and put in the IP bridge, and then connect those Wiegand wires to the IP bridge. And now the Ubiquity platform sees all the old doors exactly the same as all the new doors. So you will be able to take over an existing door for less than 1/3 of the cost of a new door, because you can handle multiple doors at one. You're leveraging all their infrastructure that's already there. So now the ability to take over an old system is much more cost-effective, transitioning them to a much more feature-rich cloud-based environment for their credential and physical access control, and you will not have to issue new credentials, because their existing system uses a credential format with only a couple of small exceptions for proprietary cards from some of the legacy older systems that are out there. But 95% of the market uses HID credentials or some standard RFID format, and your new PowerNet reader controllers will read all those formats. So you can switch from an old analog system to a new IP cloud-based systems and not have to re-credential users in the field. So a couple of talking points on the IP bridge itself. It is intelligence at the door exactly the same way as the reader controller is intelligence at the door. It's got standalone support, so it is essentially 2 or 3 door configurations that stores all those permissions locally, just like a reader controller. It is a network appliance, so just like your PowerNet reader controller, it is pingable. There's no single point of failure. It uses the Wiegand inputs that are already coming in from the existing wiring at the door and dumb reader at the door. It's super small. It's only 6 inches wide, and it's DIN rail mountable. So you have to remember that you're ripping out the old panel and you're putting this network hub in place called the IP bridge. Power already exists there. Your backup power will come in via PoE. Super simple to switch it out. So your old doors now operate like your new doors. So a couple of common questions that we would, that I anticipate. The first is, hey, Rob, your first slide said we're revolutionizing access control, but you showed me a cable. It may be a Cat5 cable, but it's a wire. How is that revolutionary? Well, there's a couple of reasons why you want to use a Cat5 cable and not just a wireless network. So first is that on the exterior doors, you want a higher level of security. And when you have a Cat5 enabled system, you have a closed loop. So if there's a breach at one door, it's only a breach at one door. It doesn't breach the entire system. Second, in those high traffic zones, you use a mag lock or an electronic strike, and those require power. And via a low voltage cable, we can provide all the power to the door and then tether off the reader controller. Lastly, on the interior doors, if you choose to use some wireless on the interior doors, you have that available to you because the Ubiquity platform integrates with all types of wireless or Z-Wave devices. Power outage. What happens when the power goes down? Well, when the power goes down, you don't want your access control to go down. So when the power goes down, the network of reader controllers simply relies on the uninterruptible power supply backup that you have on the server. And most sites already have one in place. If they don't have one in place, you put in a single power supply backup on either the switches or the server network itself, and it continues flowing power to the reader controller for, as long as you want to have that power supplied, determined by the size of the backup power. So what happens if the network goes down? Well, if the network goes down, all of the permissions and all of the records are stored locally. So if there's an interruption in the network or an interruption in connectivity, your access control doesn't go down because the access control system operates locally and will simply resync when the network comes back up. So how secure is this from the outside? We get this question a lot. And I would say we get this question a lot less now that IP cameras are over half of the market in the US. So I'm going to answer this question about security in 3 ways. The first way I'm going to answer it is, well, what happens if somebody decides to crowbar the reader off the wall and they grab that reader and they want to get all the permissions off that reader? Well, that can happen because all of the data is AES 256-bit encrypted. So if they could see what was on the boards inside the reader controller, it's just a bunch of ones and zeros. So when they crowbar that reader off the wall, it also has an infrared beam that bounces off the wall. And as soon as that tamper-resistant beam is interrupted, it shuts down the port. So it sends a signal, hey, I'm getting messed with, shuts down the port. Next, you got this Cat5 that's now available. And so what if they crowbar the reader off the wall, they get the Cat5, and they plug it into a laptop and say, I'm going to take all the information off the server. It doesn't work that way because all the data is running through a managed switch. And that reader controller is essentially like a telephone that has no dial pad. There is nowhere to go to get the information. It is expecting only one-way communication from a single AES 256-bit encrypted device. So lastly, well, what about the wires? Now that I tether it off, I get that reader off the wall and I access the pigtail, can I put those two wires together and hotwire the lock? And the answer is no, because we have an exterior door kit that splits the signal. It actually sends the signal through an encryption so that the electric strike is looking for a signal that's split from two directions through an encrypted signal. So that exterior door kit splitting the signal eliminates the ability to hotwire the lock. So you actually have a very physically secure environment, and this situation and the adoption of IP cameras is what has made customers understand, wow, it really is secure. And if you think back in the early days of the internet when we thought about online banking, wow, am I going to type my bank information into the computer? Now all of us do online banking. So security is taken care of from many different directions. So next question, how do people get added, deleted? How do we do the billing? All of that happens through the Vubiquity platform that you already have in place. So the server on site for you is connected to your billing. All of the credential management and all the other things are connected to your system through the Vubiquity platform. So now the biggest question, well, how much does this cost? In general, this system is going to be 30 to 40% less expensive than all the other systems that are out there. Now, access control market, the business in general likes to say it's about $2,000 a door for a traditional system. Well, we're actually between $800 and $1,500 a door. And the reason why we're so much less is that you simply have less to do. If there's no control panel, you don't have to install a control panel. If there's no control panel, you don't have hard wiring from the door back to the control panel, which means no drywall work or very little drywall work. Because we provide power PoE, there is no electrician needed at the door. There's no electricity at the door. And if you don't have to pay the electrician to run electricity to every door, then you probably don't need to add new circuit breakers. You probably don't have all the ripple effect of cost. So with it being so much easier to install, where all the things are at one spot when the installation happens, our best resellers quote 60 to 90 minutes a door for complete install. The industry standard is 7 to 8 hours of labor per door for install. So we're a quarter of the amount of time to install per door. There's no additional license fees other than the relationship that you have with your Clear2there and Vubiquity platform. So you're rolling it into an existing structure that you already have, and you only buy what you need. You can scale it one door at a time. It's flexible one door at a time. And all these things contribute to a significantly lower total cost of ownership. Now, your end user, he's going to say, okay, you're telling me all this stuff, but I'm going to get some other quotes. Great. Get some other quotes, and then when you talk with your customer about that quote, just be aware of the hidden costs, because a lot of the other providers aren't going to include everything. Are they including the electricity at the door, or is that the responsibility of the end user? Oh yeah, I'll give you the access control, but you got to make sure I have electrical drops at every door. Are they including all the components, the push buttons, the contacts, the lock strikes, the backup power supplies? Are they going to charge you separately for setting up and programming? And what is the maintenance and programming and fees in the long run? So this system includes everything from Clear2there. And so when you're comparing these, just make sure that you're aware of the hidden costs and that you're talking apples to apples with your customer. And what you'll find is that your customer's needs are better fixed by your relationship combined with this proposition than it is in any other scenario. So these customers, in many of your markets, you are the technological people. We had one partner who said, "Hey, in my market, I'm the only geek in town," and they trust you. They trust you because of the relationship you've provided with them over the years, and now with physical security and premise automation becoming the province of the IT provider, they continue to trust you with a segment of the business that they haven't been able to fix otherwise. These schools have real issues. They need to manage their keys. They need to funnel people having access through the front. They need to have the ability to lock down. These medical environments, they have no choice. They have to find a way to control and report on access to narcotics and pharmaceuticals. And when you start to think about your commercial customers, there is a big need to eliminate keys and to manage who goes where. And you now have an opportunity to help them do that with a very low upfront cost and an ongoing fee through a platform that pushes empowerment to the end user. It's this rare ability that all the aspects in our market are combining to create a business opportunity where we can actually exceed what the customer thinks that they can even get. So there's a lot of different opportunities within your base as to how it can work. A couple of other things to keep in mind. We have a module that allows alarm system integration. So all the big alarm systems out there, you can install this on site. You can then integrate the system into their alarm and feed the data to their actual alarm or monitoring station. If they don't have an alarm system, but they do want 24/7 monitoring, we have a partner that provides monitoring to a number of our customers. This is 24/7 monitoring. We actually have a car dealership that has premise automation, security, video, and access control. And when a motion sensor on the car lot goes off, they can look at the camera and see what's going on, and then they can open up a voice channel and say, "Hi, can we help you? We're not open at 1 o'clock in the morning, but we open at 9. Would you like to come back?" Or they can alert the authorities. So 24/7 monitoring through this cloud application gives you a lot of options that you wouldn't have otherwise. So I think, as many of you know, we also offer centralized video storage. So if there's a need for archiving the video from a couple of days to a year or longer, we can do it off-site, we can do it online. There is a centralized video storage option. So all of these things combined are the ability to go to your customer with options that they simply can't get. There is this movement to put service providing in the cloud, to tie the physical benefit to the cost structure that goes into the operational environment that allows for constant improvement of the proposition. It's the ability to get into credentialed access control to fix an issue that is creating anxiety in many of your customers that they just plain don't know how to fix. So this is what the Clear2there and Ubiquity platform does when it's combined with the pure IP hardware technology that we've done together. And you're there already. You've already taken that steps. So with that, I will wrap up a bit. Be happy to take a few questions. So